June 1816, midsummer. Across Europe, people woke up to find the sky covered with a yellowish-gray veil. But the truly terrifying part was this: the air was freezing. Snow was falling in July. Fields were frozen solid in August. People looked at bare trees and forgot it was supposed to be summer. Historians tell you this was caused by the eruption of Mount Tambora in Indonesia. They explain how the ash spread through the atmosphere and blocked out the sun. But is it really that simple? What if I told you that 1816 wasn't just a natural disaster, but the collapse moment of history's greatest secret? What if I told you that beneath that dark sky, an entire civilization was completely erased, records were burned, survivors were locked in insane asylums, and the history we're told today was built upon that wreckage? Welcome. Because today we're talking about a catastrophe that official history books never mention: Tartaria's nuclear winter. The year 1816 is called the year without a summer. Summer never came to the northern hemisphere. Snowstorms hit Quebec in May, freezing cold gripped New England in June, and throughout July and August, crops froze and died across Europe. Starvation began. The food shortage in Switzerland was so severe that the government declared a state of emergency. In Germany, people started eating wild grass. In Ireland, a typhus epidemic broke out. According to official records, the cause was Mount Tambora, which erupted on April 5, 1815. This eruption, which killed 100,000 people, filled the atmosphere with 160 cubic kilometers of ash. Scientists present this as a logical, provable, and satisfying explanation. But something's missing. A lot is missing. Because volcanic ash typically settles within a few months. It doesn't stay in the atmosphere for more than a year. Yet the darkness of 1816 lasted 18 months. And it was global. The sky didn't just darken near the eruption site, it darkened everywhere in the world. So what if there was another cause? What if that darkness wasn't from a volcano, but the result of something much bigger? Tartaria. A name erased from maps today, scraped from encyclopedias, ripped from memory. But look at pre-18th century maps and there it is. Great Tartaria, marked as a massive geography. A vast region encompassing much of Asia, Siberia, Mongolia, and beyond. Official history tells you this name was just a vague term Westerners used for the Asian steppes. But the truth can't be that simple. Because thousands of architectural traces of Tartaria still stand today. Magnificent cathedrals, mysterious underground tunnels, buildings with incredible geometry. Most of these are officially recorded as being built in the late 1800s. But here's what's strange. Most of these buildings are far too advanced to have been constructed with the technical capabilities of that era. The stonework on their walls, their symmetrical structures, their perfectly energy-efficient designs amaze even today's architects. So were these buildings really built in the 19th century, or are they remnants of a much older civilization? According to Tartaria theory, these structures are remnants of a previously existing advanced civilization. And 1816 was the final scene of that civilization's collapse. Something strange happened in early 1800s Europe and America. Hundreds of people were locked up in insane asylums with diagnoses of madness. Official records say they were admitted for reasons like Industrial Revolution stress, religious heresy, or melancholy. But some researchers claim these people actually knew what used to be. They were survivors of the previous world. Perhaps these were people who had lived before the Great Catastrophe, witnessed a technological age, then realized everything had been reset and tried to tell others about it. And they were silenced, isolated from society by being locked in asylums. Because what they were saying wasn't rational. They talked about energy towers, wireless communication, free energy. But in the 1820s, nobody knew about such things. because the new world was being newly established, from scratch, and the past had to be completely erased. Now let's return to 1816. The sky is darkening. This isn't just an ish cloud. Radiation, high-energy explosions, electromagnetic collapse. According to Tartaria theory, a global reset occurred during that period. And this reset was not a natural event. Nuclear? Maybe. Energy weapons? Maybe. An unknown technological catastrophe? Definitely. The strange climate changes of 1816 weren't just weather phenomena. They were side effects of a civilization's collapse. The sky didn't darken just because of ash. High-energy explosions filled the atmosphere with electricity, disrupted the magnetic field, and turned weather systems upside down. That's why frost, snow, fog, and darkness lasted for months. And during this time, as the old world was being destroyed, the new world was being written. New history books were being printed. New maps were being drawn. And the name Tartaria was being erased and destroyed from everywhere. Why are pre-1800 books so rare? Because most were burned. Official history tells you, paper is fragile, it deteriorates over time. But thousand-year-old manuscripts still sit in museums today. Egyptian papyri, Roman inscriptions, medieval Bibles, all intact. But the everyday records of the 1700s, the local newspaper archives of the 1600s, the folk tales of the 1500s? Gone. Most are lost. Why? Because those records talked about the old world, about Tartaria, old cities, a different way of life. And the new order didn't want them. Because if people knew what the previous world was like, they would start questioning the current world. They would ask, why don't we have these technologies anymore? Why do we seem so regressed? And these questions were dangerous for control. That's why libraries were set on fire. Old architectural structures were renovated or demolished. Survivors were silenced. And all that remained was a history we were forced to accept. So what was life like in Tartaria? If the theories are true, there was free energy there. People lived in harmony with nature, but also possessed advanced technology. Buildings weren't just shelters, they were energy collection centers. Domes, towers, columns, all resembled antennas collecting electricity from the atmosphere. Wireless energy transmission was real. People were free and comfortable. There was no central control. That's why the system had to collapse it. Because a society that can't be controlled can't be governed. The nuclear winter of 1816 was perhaps the final blow that ended this old world. Maybe it was a war. Maybe it was a technological accident. But the result was the same. Tartaria disappeared, and the new world was born from its ashes. The history we're told today becomes clear after the 1850s. The Industrial Revolution begins. Photography is invented. Records multiply. But before 1850? Blurry. Incomplete. Contradictory. Why are the census records from the early 1800s so inconsistent? Why do the founding dates of some cities contradict each other? Why do architectural structures from all over the world look like they were built in the same style, but are attributed to different cultures? Because perhaps they were all part of the same civilization. And after that civilization fell, each region wrote its own story. New nations were founded. New identities were invented. And the truth was imprisoned in darkness. The darkening of the sky in 1816 wasn't just a climate anomaly. Survivor testimonies clearly show this. Strange lights in the atmosphere, odd sounds heard at night, extraordinary magnetic events. These are too abnormal to be explained by volcanic ash. But a nuclear explosion, energy weapons, or an unknown technological catastrophe? Yes, those could explain it. 1816 was history's great reset. And we are the children of that reset. The history we're taught is the history written by the winners. But the loser story? That's hidden underground, in old structures, in forbidden books. The conclusion? Maybe we'll never know. Maybe all the evidence was destroyed long ago. But maybe there are still clues waiting to be found. The dark sky of 1816 was the final echo of a truth they wanted us to forget. And whenever you see an old building, whenever you read a historical record, ask yourself this. Is the story I'm being told what really happened, or what I'm supposed to believe? Because history is written by the winners. But the truth can never be completely erased. The truth will come out sooner or later,